Dude, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. Oh, I'm in. Okay. Oh, shit. I don't want my audio to. I have no idea. I'm still like fuzzy with Zoom. Well, it hasn't started yet.
Hello.
Hi, Shruti.
How are you doing?
Oh, it's so nice to see you. Thank you for doing it.
Oh, of course. I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to do it.
Wonderful.
I can't get on through my computer for some reason, so I'm doing it from my phone, but I really want to get on my computer, so I'm still trying.
Okay, no problem. Sounds good.
I don't know why the internet's just not behaving today. It's just because it rained earlier, I think. That could be it.
Where are you right now, if I may ask?
In Curacao.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just weird.
If someone can figure out the technology, it's you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, down there?
It's a little, I thought I heard some other participants. I see 4, 5, about 6 people on the call, so we'll see.
Wonderful.
Hey, Shruti, it's Emily.
Is that Emily?
It's Emily, yeah. Hey.
Hi, Emily.
Hi,
How's
Emily.
it going?
So, I was just saying, Emily, that I was trying to get on through my computer, but that doesn't seem to be working. So I'm gonna have to do it from my phone because I had a PowerPoint and everything. But...
Let's fix this up.
That's okay. Okay, I'll give it another minute and then we can try again.
Maybe, Shruti, and maybe if we can't see your video, you can turn your phone to your PowerPoint just kind of while you talk, you know, on your computer if you access it.
Yep, I'm gonna do that.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna go on.
I'm not watching it, Mama.
And I'm gonna ask if everyone could mute themselves. That would just be really helpful. And then later on, thank you, Anne-Laure. And then that way later on, when people have questions, we can talk about that again. So, all right, give it another minute and then we can start. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start just so that, because I know people's time is precious and I don't wanna take away too much time from you on your Saturday. So thank you all for calling in. This webinar is called COVID-19 Being a Sibling to a Person with a Disability, and it's co-sponsored by the Massachusetts Sibling Support Network. And I apologize that the PowerPoint, I just can't get it to work because the internet apparently is also suffering with coronavirus here in Curacao. It's just not, I can't seem to get it going. So I'm doing my best and I'm gonna be calling in from my phone. So I just wanna start off by saying I'm by no means an expert in the coronavirus. I don't think anyone is at this point because it's so new. And there's so little that we actually know about it, but I am a sibling to somebody with a disability. My sister is 32 years old. She'll be 33 next month in a couple weeks actually. And she has cerebral palsy. She was born with it. And she is just so full of energy and life. And this has been a very challenging time for my parents and myself. So I just got a message from one of our participants offering to share the PowerPoint, and that's very sweet, but I actually can't get it to you because the internet is bad, but thank you so much. So just to start off, I wanted to talk about how everything that we're going through this pandemic, I know my generation has actually never lived through a pandemic, so it is brand new territory for me. For sure. And it's funny because worldwide, I'm seeing people panicking and saying, you know, this is such a profound and disruptive situation we find ourselves in. And it seems like everyone's kind of looking at each other for what to do. And the good news is that as SIBs, we're used to disruption. We're used to crisis. We're used to uncertainty. Some of us are just kind of trying to hold our head above water and trying to survive this thing, not knowing what we're trying to survive, not knowing how long it's going to last. And those feelings are scary. And we're still trying to be brave for our siblings, for our families. And yet others of us are sitting there thinking, well, we've felt this way for years, where we feel so alone and like we just don't know what's going on. But I don't want to take away from the fear and anxiety. What we have going for us, however, is that we're also brave. We also do deal with crises very well. And it's really okay to be scared and brave at the same time. And often we think it can only be one and not the other. And I don't think that's true. So this pandemic can feel so isolating. And yes, we are used to that. And yes, we are well prepared for it because we're so used to it. But we're also left to make sense of things that don't really make sense right now. We are being given instructions from people that have more authority than us. We're being told what to do. In a way, it's funny, I told my parents the other day, I kind of feel what my sister has been going through all these years because we've been telling her what to do all this time. And we've kind of taken charge of her life for her. And now it's being done to us. And it doesn't feel very good to me personally. So it was just an interesting thought that I've been thinking about. So things to factor in when we are thinking about being a sibling or a SIB in this pandemic is that even though we are not alone in this, we have each other as a support network, and we know we get it. We have been there. We've been through lots of circumstances in our lives that are less than ideal. We've come out of it. We get it with each other, and we have this group that we can count on. But there are still some factors that set us apart, and it's important to keep in mind as these issues are addressed. For example, we all may be SIBs, but some of us have more than one sibling, and some of us live with our sibling, and some of us have medical issues of ourselves, and the ages of the sibling are different, and the development age is different, and whether they need caretakers or not, or is their life disrupted. All that stuff can really set us apart when we're talking about this stuff. So I just wanted to point that out. Something to think about, I'm sorry, does someone have a question or it's just, okay. So something to think about, or a few things to think about is, first and foremost, I know I first started feeling this or feeling the panic of this when I started getting an overload of information. So a few days ago, I think it was maybe Tuesday or Monday of last week, I went into one of my email boxes and I had 230 new emails, which is okay. I mean, that's an average day for me. That's fine. But out of 230 new emails, 223 of them were related to the coronavirus. They were from different retailers, different companies, organizations that I'm a part of. All of them were explaining their response and what they were doing to keep us safe. And while it's great to have this information, it was definitely overwhelming. And this is for someone who, I don't prioritize my safety as my number one need. Some of you have heard me talk about basic needs and the model that I follow. I follow something called choice theory reality therapy. And that explains that there are 5 basic needs in every human being. Some of you may have studied psychology and are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And this is not kind of similar, but not quite. So choice theory says the 5 basic needs are: 1 is survival, which is your basic need to live. Taking care of yourself with food, water, shelter, making sure that you have everything you need to actually survive and breathe. The second one is love, belonging, connection. So that's your need to be in contact with people, to connect with people, which all of us, I think, if I can speak for everybody, we're all kind of hurting in that right now. The third need is freedom. Again, kind of hurting in that, because it's the need to make decisions for ourselves, have choices, choosing what we want to eat for dinner, what we want to wear, how we want to spend our time, who we want to spend our time with, that kind of thing. The fourth one is fun or joy, and that's the need to experience learning or something new or exciting or something that really brings about the joy in us. And the fifth one is power. Not to be confused with control, but the power need is the need to feel like you have some sort of significance, like you have some sort of say in the world, like you're being heard or listened to. So those are the 5 needs that I always go by. And I am not a high survival and safety person. I am not someone that's constantly thinking about my survival or safety. My love and belonging is very high. I constantly need connection. And it's really interesting because in these days, it seems like survival is taking a front seat in what I do and how I make my decisions. So going back to the overloading of information, this is hard for almost everyone, right? Getting too much information. I've heard a lot of people say, well, I just had to turn off the news for a little while, or I just had to stop talking about this. I need to talk about something else for a few minutes. And that's a form of self-care, because it can get to be a lot. And thinking about that for our siblings, depending on their processing, depending on their development. For example, my sister has no idea what's going on. Her cognitive functioning doesn't allow for her to know what's going on. So she's oblivious. All she cares about is the fact that she's not going to her daycare program. She's at home, which really should mean vacation, but yet we're not going anywhere. So she doesn't like this plan. But if you do have a sibling who can process that information, just think about how much information they are getting, because it can be overwhelming for us and for the sibling to get all this information. So think about maybe turning on the news for 1 hour a day, or asking a friend to text you updates of only the essential things. I know for me, I've been getting texts and WhatsApps about all these videos and all these facts about people dying in the UK or being hospitalized in Canada. It's good to know this information, but I don't need to know all of it. So I've actually asked some of my friends and family, okay, just stop for a while, because you're taking up the memory on my phone as well, and I really need that memory for other stuff. So it's okay to do that. Another thing to think about is isolation. So it's kind of an obvious for a lot of us. It just feels like we're trapped. If you're at home, or maybe you're somebody who is needed at work and you are allowed to go in. I am one of those people where, even though I have my own business, I also work for an international school as their school counselor. And school's been closed, but they are allowing staff members to come in and work from school if we want to. I have been taking them up on this every single day, because I'm just more productive at work in my office than I am at home. And it gives me a little bit of a mental health break from my family. As much as I love them, I do need to get away from them every once in a while. So the other thing to think about for isolation is that a lot of us as sibs went through years of feeling guilty of having our own social lives, or feeling like we're leaving our siblings behind or having our own lives. And it took us years to get to this place where we actually built this life for ourselves. So it can be challenging, because it took us a long time to get to a place where we said, okay, I need to go out without you today. And now here we are being forced not to do that anymore. So thinking about how else we can get our social time in is really important. I know a lot of people are going to Zoom, or to what we are on right now, or going to FaceTime or Google Hangouts to have coffee dates with their friends, or even to play a game of Monopoly online, or to even have happy hour online. There are a bunch of companies that are telling us that they're offering services for free. Like I believe Audible is giving us a bunch of books for free. There are a bunch of things online on Facebook that are telling us that they can, I think you can visit museums around the world for free. So that kind of stuff, it's really great. And if we can take advantage of that, I think that's really important in feeling like we're not trapped. So another thing to think about as SIBs is that in a time like this where safety and survival kind of takes precedence over everything else, our regular feelings can almost be put on hold for a while. So some of us struggle all the time with guilt when it comes to our SIBs or when it comes to resentment. I mean, some of us grew up in environments that we want to run away from and we don't want to go back. And thinking about that, it's funny because a lot of us are putting those on hold just so that we can be in the now and deal with what's going on. But I encourage you to think about and to process those feelings even now, because we don't know how long this is going to last. It's very different, you know, when this first came about and when school was first canceled for me as a counselor, I told my parents, I guess I'm used to this because we used to have snow days when I lived in Massachusetts, but it doesn't really feel like a snow day because yes, you're kind of trapped in your house and okay, there's no snow obviously, but also there's this air of danger and we don't know how long it's going to last. There have been times where we lose power and, you know, schools are shut. But in our minds, it feels short-lived. It feels like, okay, this is going to be a break from life for a day or two, and then we're going to go back to our day-to-day routine. Whereas now, we just don't know what the reality is. I mean, air travel's canceled, borders are closed. The places that we used to go to for our comfort, our favorite coffee shop, or our favorite bookstore or library, those places are closed now. So it really is forcing us to look at ourselves and think about what can I do that will bring a little bit of joy in my life. Something else to think about is our SIBs in our own families. Some of us have our own families besides our SIBs. Some of us live with our SIBs. Some of us live with our own families. I spoke to someone the other day who is a SIB and does get her sibling over to stay over sometimes, but she's never had her SIB and her kids overnight at the same time. And that's new. That was new for her. So that's also a new challenge that can be brought about. It's, you know, everyone under the same roof, social isolating or not, you're trying to keep everyone you love safe. And some of these situations have never happened before. And the buzzword going around is finding the new normal. And I find it to be true. I mean, it is indeed finding out what works for us. And while we don't want to plan too much ahead of time because we don't know what information we're going to get that's going to change our reality, but it is important to think about, okay, this is not just a today thing. This could go on for a few weeks, and therefore we need to think about a game plan for how this is going to work. So I encourage that as well. And to keep in mind that people are behaving they're behaving out of character. It's funny, I told my friend the other day, watching the news and watching people fighting over toilet paper, it almost feels like I'm watching the news from Black Friday shopping in the States, where tensions are high and it's just like people are just hoarding in that mentality of they don't know when they're going to see it next. And it's not always fun, but it is something to think about, that we're all kind of behaving outside of our norm, and to give a little allowance for that. In high stress points in our lives, we tend to act differently. So just think about that. Earlier on, I talked about our basic needs, those 5 needs: the connection, the freedom, the fun, the power, and the survival. And something else to think about is how every human being, every single moment in our lives, have a way of being, in the sense that we have a picture in our heads about how things should be all the time. So I have a picture in my head of waking up every weekday morning, going through my routine, taking a shower, filling my tea mug full of tea, going to work, being a school counselor, coming home, and being a private practice therapist. And that picture has been tainted. That can't happen anymore. So to think about, or to even to acknowledge that that picture has been tainted and it's kind of been yanked away can be really powerful, because then it doesn't feel as helpless. Like we feel like, okay, I'm acknowledging this is not the same now. What can we do about it? And out of that routine, it's so important to think about, what can I still keep from that routine? And what is in my control to keep in that routine? I can still wake up at the same time every morning, right? I mean, just because I don't have to go into work, I can still set my alarm and wake up to give myself some sort of normalcy. And the same goes for our SIBs. My sister is not going to school every day or her day program every day, but we still wake her up at the exact same time to give her that structure, because it's important for her to feel some sort of normalcy. The breakfast is still the same. It's not vacation breakfast. It's still oatmeal, which is what she has every single day for breakfast, because that's what she likes. And the nurse comes in at the same time as if she was going to her day program, gives her a shower. And okay, instead of going to the program, we try to entertain her at home. But there are things that we can do for ourselves that doesn't necessarily need to go away just because we're not leaving the house. Like I tell people who talk to me, you can still wear makeup. You can still get out of your pajamas. You can still listen to your favorite music in the car while you're driving to get groceries or whatever it is that you're trying to do. You can still enjoy those little things. It's not like fun and gratitude is on lockdown. So think about that as well. Something else I wanted to address was the risk factors. So I am fortunate enough that my sibling does not have any medical conditions that would make her a higher risk that we know of anyway. But she is at a higher risk because of her cognitive limitations. So she's someone who, she can't walk by herself. So she touches surfaces and things, even though she has a walker. Getting out of the house to the car, she will touch every single car in a parking lot. Her hands are constantly filthy, and she does not wash her hands thoroughly enough. So because of that, and because of the limitation of her understanding of why we're at home and what's going on around us, that makes her high risk. Even though her medical condition doesn't, because of her cognitive limitations, she is higher at risk. So that's also something to think about, depending on your situation with your sibling. And like I mentioned earlier, my sister does not understand why everyone's at home. I go to work, she doesn't get that. She doesn't leave the house. Her nurses are coming in. It's just so confusing for her, and that's something to keep in mind as well. And the other thing to think about is how much information that you are giving your sibling. So I mentioned that if they have that cognitive functioning to receive information, then yeah, go for it. Explain to them what's going on. Tell them that there's this thing going around, it's in the air, and you can get it from touching people, and it's transmitted through water droplets. And if they can get that, then absolutely explain to that, because information is helpful. It does change our perception. The more information we get, the more our perception of the situation changes, and that can actually be helpful for them. Now, with that being said, please get your facts straight. So don't just look at the death rates, also look at the survival rates. If you are going to tell a story to yourself about what's happening, make sure it's accurate, make sure it's productive. There is so much of information out there, and there's a lot of fake news out there as well. So just make sure that the information you're feeding yourself with is helping you. Because again, going back to what I said earlier about overloading yourself, if you're overloading yourself with false news, that's not really help you. So also ask yourself, I had a teacher asked me the other day when school was still in session, she asked me, "Are you panicking?" And I said, "No, I'm not panicking." And she said, "How? How is it that you're not panicking?" And I said, "Well, I realized that panicking isn't serving me." And she asked me to explain, and I did. And I said to her, you know, when we feel anxiety, when we feel panic, whatever we feel, it's usually productive, right? Anxiety can be productive, it can be healthy, it's there for a reason. It's supposed to be encouraging us to do something. We feel anxious before a test because that's supposed to help us do better. We feel a little nervous before a speaking engagement. That's supposed to encourage us to do good and not to take it for granted. So we're supposed to kind of be kept on our toes by anxiety and by some of these feelings. But when it turns to a feeling like panic, where it's not productive and it's interfering with your day-to-day life and how you feel, then I'm not gonna engage in that. I mean, yeah, there was a point where I thought about, do I have everything I need? Am I well equipped? Do I need to go to the grocery store? Do I need to go to the gas station and fill up my cars with gas? Do I need to go buy toilet paper? Once I've gone through that list with the information that I have, what's the point of panicking if it's not serving me? Now, sometimes panic can serve as a reason for being prepared. Panicking can help people go out and do the things they need to do to be prepared. But if you're past that stage, then I would encourage you to ask yourself, is this really serving me or not? Something else to keep in mind is something called availability heuristic, which is the idea that we only use information that is available to us. So if we are constantly getting our information from Facebook or from one particular news channel, or we're only getting it from the newspaper, or we're only getting it from the person who delivers our groceries to us, just think about that, because information, like I said earlier, can change our perception. So make sure the information you arm yourself with is productive. And there are certain factors that go into what we do with information. When it's emotional, we can tend to react on it. When it's consequential, when we feel like, okay, if I don't do something with this, it's going to change my life. When it's dramatic, right? The way information is delivered to us can make a difference in how we take it. And when it's authoritative. So if somebody in authority gives us information, we tend to take it a little differently. So that's more to think about. Now, what our SIBs may expect from us during this time, something I want to just talk about briefly is to acknowledge that you can't always take away the scary parts. What's going on around us is a little scary. It is unknown. It's unknown to me anyway. And okay, luckily my sister has no clue. She's oblivious, and that's great for her. Ignorance is bliss in this case. But I am talking to a lot of siblings who are really affected by this because they either live alone and now they're at home, or they can't do the things that they're used to doing. Someone with an autistic sibling who's so used to routine can't do that. And the first thing to do, I think, is to acknowledge, yes, you're right. It is scary. You're allowed to feel anxious. You're allowed to feel angry about this, but to also know that there is stuff we can do. So what is in our control to change? What I've been doing is I've been trying to make dinners special occasions since my parents and sister are cooped up at home every day. I come home and whatever we're going to eat for dinner, we just eat it in a different room. We put on the TV, we turn off the lights, we make it a movie night, make some popcorn, maybe huddle under the blanket, turn on the air cohere because it's not cold. Just try to make it a special occasion so that you don't feel like you're necessarily missing out on things. And again, you can still listen to your favorite music. You can still do the things that you love. Just because you're on house arrest does not mean you're on fun arrest. And mental health, I can't stress this enough in any webinar that I do, is if you're not taking care of yourself you're not going to be able to take care of anybody else. So what I mean by that is anyone who's ever flown an airplane before, they talk about how you put your oxygen mask on first before anyone else. And the reason for that is because if you are in a situation where there's no oxygen, it's running out, and your instinct is to help your sibling first. You put it on your sibling, but in the meantime, you pass out. All of a sudden, you're gone and there's no one left to care for your sibling anymore. But if you put yours on first, even if your sibling passes out from lack of oxygen and you get to them right after you get your own on first, they will be okay. So remember, you can't take care of anyone unless you're taking care of yourself first. And kind of woven through that is the protecting yourself part, which is protecting yourself from the virus. Think about whether you have providers who come into your home to care for your sibling. We have a nurse that comes in once a day, and that's an outsider. So we've got to think about, how do we protect ourselves? Do we ask her to wear gloves? Do we ask her to wear a mask? Do we Lysol spray everything as soon as she leaves? Using hand sanitizer, that kind of thing. Protecting yourself with resources. Know what your resources are. That would depend on where you are and what county you live in, but there are resources available to you. And there are resources online, like I mentioned. If your sibling is one that has a cognitive capability of watching something on TV or doing something on the internet, tap into those resources for boredom, for information, just to make it a kind of, I told my sister, this is going to be like a camp. This is going to be a little different than what you're used to, but that doesn't mean it has to be bad. Know your space and your mental health. Know your limitations. I know I'm an introvert at the end of the day. If I don't get my alone time, I'm not going to be functioning well. So what can I do to make that happen? Even if it's going into the car for 20 minutes and watching an episode of Friends on my phone, that's me protecting my mental health. So know what's good for you in order to do that for your sibling. And going a little bit deeper into the mental health piece, if you need, set a schedule for yourself. Set a schedule for your sibling. If that's what they need, do it. Dressing up. Instead of sitting in pajamas, I mean, there are a lot of memes going around about people not getting out of pajamas at all these days. If that's what your sibling needs, then do it. And that's what we're doing in our house. We're putting her in regular clothes during the day and in pajamas at night, just so she has some sort of normalcy as well. Enjoying the little things. So I decided tomorrow we're going to go through family pictures, because we never have the time to go through family pictures. But this is something that we can do since we have all this free time, right? Making meals a special occasion is something I talked about. Thinking about entertainment, thinking about getting creative about where you can get this entertainment online. Getting your facts right, which I talked about as well. Asking yourself how much information that you are willing to expose yourself to. And remember, you process threats based on how you're getting the information. So if you are getting it from someone who's really panicked, and today I spoke to somebody on the phone who said, oh, I heard we're going to be on lockdown for 18 months. And they were a little panicked about it. And I started to panic until I stopped myself and said, okay, hold on. I haven't heard anything official yet, and this is not going to serve me to panic. If I hear something official in the next few days, then we'll plan ahead. But just think about how you're getting this information as well, because information skews perception. And then think about the attitude of gratitude. A lot of people have started posting about this as well. Asking ourselves, what do we have now? What is in our control? And really, it seems like we have the gift of time. We don't have much else in terms of what to do with that time, but we have the gift of time. So what can we do with that? You know, sorting through our closets, or going through our houses, or spending time with our parents, or even our siblings where we normally don't get time with them because either they live apart, or we're always at work, or we live in different counties, whatever it may be. Think about what good thing is happening now that wouldn't normally happen if we weren't in the middle of this pandemic. And then having a sense of humor. I know for me, I won't get through anything unless it's with a sense of humor. I actually have been saving all the memes and the funny jokes about this virus. I've been saving it in a folder, and every once in a while I just go read it. And it's not harmful to anybody. It's not offensive. I don't find them offensive. It's just silly, fun memes and jokes that get a laugh out of me, that I think it's a better way of dealing with it than crying. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. And then I had a little graphic to show you, which anybody who's interested in the actual PowerPoint, I'm happy to mail it to you. I'm happy to email it to you. But basically, it gives you a graphic of what you can control and what you cannot control. And the things that we can control, examples, are your attitude and how you follow CDC recommendations and your own social distancing and turning off the news and limiting your social media and practicing your kindness and grace and finding fun things to do at home. And these are things that we can control. So it makes sense to focus on these. And then the things that we cannot control. So if others follow the rules of social distancing or not, we can't control that. We can yell at them, we can get mad at them, but I'm not sure that's gonna work. The amount of toilet paper at the store, we can't control that. So no point stressing about it. How long this thing will last, we cannot control that. It's anybody's best guess to how long this is gonna last. So we may as well buckle our seatbelts and get ready for the ride. How others react to it, whether they're panicking or not, we can't control that either. Now, when it comes to our siblings, there is a little bit of control, I believe, in how we are giving information to them. We're giving information, how we give them information, and we're the role models. Earlier this week, I sent an email to all the parents of the kids in my school. They're pre-K through 12. And the big message was, we're the role models, we're the examples. If we're panicking and freaking out about what's happening, that's what they're gonna do. For a lot of our siblings, that's the same thing. A lot of our siblings have the cognitive functioning of a child, just like mine does. So they're gonna look at us, panic, and it is gonna change things about them. They're gonna get stressed out, they're not gonna sleep as well, and that's not a good thing for anybody involved. So just think about the things that you can control, think about the things that are not in your control, and that's one of the best pieces of advice that I have. Like I said, I'm not an expert on the COVID-19. I don't think anyone is at this point, but when it comes to dealing with our siblings and of being a sib, I think we are better equipped than anyone else out there, because we are so used to crises and we are so used to the unknown and things not going according to plan, that I know we're going to come out of this. It's just a matter of how resilient we want to be and how patient we can be, and counting on each other. I know I didn't talk about every single situation, because that would take a very long time, and we're all in different situations, but just keeping those key factors in mind of our own self-care, blending our needs in. You know, if I'm a really high love and belonging and connection person, and my sibling is a high survival person, if your sibling is indeed high survival, then they want information. They need to know that they are safe. But if your sibling is a high connection person, they need connection. They don't care what's going on in the world. They just want to talk to people. They need to feel loved. So maybe setting up Skype dates and FaceTime dates is the way to go for them. If they're a high fun person, maybe you think about activities, rainy day activities on Google. Gives you a lot of different options. So while there's no magic pill for this, for me, the key that I'm using is to think about the basic needs of my sister, thinking about mine, and finding ways to get them met within the confinements of this house. I think it can be done. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of creativity, but like I said, if anyone's equipped for this, it's us. I really apologize that the graphic didn't work, but I'm happy to send this to anyone who may need it. So if anybody has any questions or anything that they'd like to say, I know everyone's on mute right now, but go ahead and unmute and we can chat if you have any questions.
Hi, Shruti. This is Emily Rubin from the Massachusetts Sibling Support Network. And
Hi, Emily.
Hi, I'm so grateful for this presentation that you did. You covered so many important aspects of the sibling experience that a lot of them I hadn't thought about, because we take for granted so much about being a sibling, and you know, it really does create this very complicated dynamic on the one hand. On the other hand, we have a lot of tools that are already in place that we're not even aware of. So I'm very grateful. Thank you for sharing this information.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you for the opportunity. Does anyone have any questions or anything that they'd like to add, or anything specific they want to talk about?
Hi, Shruti. This is Emily from the Mass Sibling Support Network. How are ya?
Hi, Emily. I'm great. Thank you.
Great job. I don't even think we needed
you.
your PowerPoint. I think, you know, your voice alone was very soothing, calming, and I think your content, in addition to that, was excellent. One thing I wanted to say for anybody who's on who may not think of any questions right now, but something might come to mind later, or something may come to mind about additional topics that you'd be interested in hearing about. Anybody who's on the call and anybody that you may know in your life can always email us at info@masssiblingsupport.org, or visit us on the web, and you know, you can connect with us after the fact. This doesn't end here, is my point, and we're all available during this time and beyond.
Thank you, Emily. That's a great reminder. Okay, if nobody has any more questions or anything they'd like to add, I guess that would be it.
Well, actually, sorry, this is Emily R. It's a little confusing because there are two Emilys at the Mass Sibling Support Network. But we would really appreciate it if people would be willing to fill out a survey, very short survey, which we'll be emailing you about your experience with the webinar. So that would help us a lot as an organization figure out what we can do to support siblings. So we appreciate your feedback, and I want to thank you for filling out the survey in advance.
Wonderful. Thank you, Emily.
This is Ann Laura. I'm also with the Mass Sibling Support Network. And I just want to thank you, Shruti, in particular, but everybody for participating, because I know for me, the connection is one of the big, out of the 5 needs. It's one that's up there for me. And so just seeing other people's names and that we're paying attention and concerned about similar situations that we're in with our siblings is heartwarming. So very grateful to everybody for participating.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you everyone for signing in. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend, and you can absolutely, oh, somebody's chatting, so maybe somebody, so if you guys want the slideshow sent to you, this is actually a really good point. I just need your email addresses, and I'm happy to send you, this was recorded, so I'm happy to send you the slideshow, and I'm happy to send you the recording. So if you could just go to the chat room on the side of your screen, if you click chat and put in your email addresses, that would be great, and I could send that to you.
Thank you for that too.
Thank you. I see them coming in now.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, and have a great Saturday.
Thank you, Shruti. Perhaps we can just keep the webinar up for a few more minutes because it looks like people are sending in their email addresses.
Oh yes, I won't log out until everyone else does.
Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks. Okay, I think the only one left is Emily, Ruben, and Laura and Adrian. Adrian, if you can hear us, could you send us your email? All right, I think that's it, guys. So I will send this to you. Thank you once again, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you so much, Shruti. And
Thank you.
wonderful, very informative and comforting.
Thank you, Anne Laura. I really appreciate it.
That's a lot to all these people, to all of us.
Right.
Happy day down there.
Happy, happy day. Take care. Bye.